You gave your heart, your time, your energy. You were real, honest, and patient. But one day, he decided to walk away. Maybe he said he needed space. Maybe he said he wasn't ready. Whatever the excuse, he left. And now, as you're learning to live without him, something strange happens. He wants back in. But why? And more importantly, should you even care? Let's talk about what's really going on. When he made the decision to walk away, he likely believed you would still be there, waiting in the background. Maybe he thought you'd chase after him or check in to see how he was doing. In his mind, he had time and control. He assumed your love would always be within reach, no matter how far he drifted. But what he didn't see coming was your strength. The quiet way you let go without creating a scene, without trying to convince him to stay, You didn't beg. You didn't make dramatic speeches. Instead, you chose your dignity. You let the silence speak for you. And that silence hit him harder than any argument could. The absence of your energy in his life became deafening. Suddenly, all that power he thought he had began to crumble, replaced by an unfamiliar sense of loss that he wasn't prepared to feel. As days passed, the reality set in. You were no longer emotionally invested in him, and that made him panic. He hadn't expected you to move on, to smile without him, to reclaim your joy. He thought he could walk away and still return on his terms. But your detachment rewrote the rules. He could no longer find comfort in the idea that you'd always be there. That shift is what made him desperate to return. Now he's struggling to understand how he went from the one in control to the one being ignored. He feels betrayed, so he wants to return towards the one in control, to the one being. He feels the loss not because you're gone, but because you're no longer his emotional safety net. He's beginning to realize that what he walked away from was rare, and now he wants it back. But wanting you back and being ready for you are two completely different things. When you were always available, always there when he needed you, he didn't truly see your value. He may have enjoyed your presence, even depended on it at times, but he never stopped to really appreciate it. There's a strange human tendency to overlook what feels guaranteed, and that's exactly what happened. Your constant availability gave him a false sense of security, making him believe that no matter what he did, you'd always stay. But things changed the moment you pulled your energy back. When you stopped checking in, stopped waiting for his responses, and started focusing on yourself, a shift occurred. He began to notice the space you used to fill. The silence you left behind started echoing in his life, making him aware of something he had taken for granted. The comfort of having someone who genuinely cared was now missing, and that absence made him uncomfortable. Now that he's unsure whether he still has a place in your life, he's suddenly overwhelmed with emotions he never showed before. The things you once did for him, your support, your presence, your love, have become vivid in his memory because they're no longer there. Regret begins to rise as he realizes how much he had and how easily he let it slip through his fingers. The loss becomes real to him only when he sees that you're no longer his to lean on. This desperation he now feels isn't just about losing you. It's about losing the version of himself that felt important and desired in your eyes. He valued being valued. And now, stripped of your attention, he's finally beginning to understand what he truly lost. Unfortunately for him, understanding it now doesn't guarantee a second chance. You didn't chase after him when he walked away. You didn't send a string of messages trying to fix things or asking him to explain his actions. You didn't cry in front of him or try to prove your worth. Instead, you chose silence. And in doing so, you made one of the loudest statements you could ever make. Your refusal to engage in a drama-filled goodbye spoke more about your self-worth than any emotional plea ever could. While many expect chaos when they leave, tears, arguments, desperate attempts to make them stay, you gave him none of that. You simply removed your energy from his life. And that shift created a vacuum he wasn't ready for. He expected resistance, not indifference. He thought you would crumble, but instead, you held your ground. That emotional absence became impossible to ignore, forcing him to feel the weight of your departure. The truth is, silence is powerful because it doesn't give the other person control. It's not fueled by emotion, it's rooted in clarity. And when you go silent, you create space for someone to sit with their own decisions. He was left with no distractions, no arguments to focus on, just the cold realization that you weren't there anymore. That kind of clarity is haunting for someone who thought they could leave without consequences. Now, in your quiet strength, he sees everything he couldn't when you were still around. He sees the loyalty, the consistency, the love that was once so freely given. But it's too late to respond to what is no longer offered. And then he refuses the loyalty, the consistency, the love that was once so freely given. But it's too late to respond to what is no longer offered. The silence he once ignored has now become the echo that follows him everywhere. In the beginning, his ego was driving the entire relationship. He wanted to be in control, to feel powerful, to know he could have you and still walk away if he chose to. Pride made him hold back, made him play it cool, made him act like he didn't care as much as he actually did. Maybe he was afraid of vulnerability, or maybe he thought admitting how deeply he felt would somehow make him weak. So he hid behind distance, silence, or even coldness, hoping you'd keep reaching while he stayed emotionally guarded. But after some time away, the distractions that once kept him confident and entertained began to fade. The temporary attention from others, the illusion of freedom, the ego boosts, they all lost their appeal. He realized that while his pride may have helped him walk away, it couldn't keep him company at night. It couldn't comfort him during the quiet moments. And most importantly, it couldn't replace the depth of connection he had with you. Slowly, the truth started to creep in. He didn't lose just a person. He lost peace, safety, and something real. Now his heart is catching up to what his ego tried to ignore. The emotions he once suppressed are now surfacing, and they're overwhelming. He remembers your laughter, your patience, the way you looked at him like he mattered, and the way he looked at him like he mattered. And in the quiet moments, when there's nothing to distract him, he begins to feel the ache of what he gave up. The ego that once convinced him he was fine now feels small and empty. It led him to believe he had all the time in the world. But now, that same ego watches helplessly as you slip further out of reach. He's realizing too late that real love is not something you gamble with just to protect your pride. Sadly, sexual violence helps him to find the Balden, and it helps him to protect your pride. Real connection doesn't come often, and it doesn't wait forever. The strength he thought he had by walking away has now turned into a weakness he can't shake off. And now that his heart finally wants to come forward, he's haunted by the fear that it may no longer matter, that the person he once walked away from has already outgrown the version of him that left. When he walked away, he may have assumed you'd fall apart. He may have. I would love to say that he would stop walking away, that the person he once walked away from has already outgrown the version of him that left. When he walked away, he may have assumed you'd fall apart. He probably expected you to sit with your pain, to dwell on what went wrong, and to long for his return. But instead of letting heartbreak break you, you turned inward. You took your pain and used it as fuel to grow. You poured your energy into healing, into rediscovering your worth, into building a life that didn't revolve around him. What he thought would leave you shattered ended up becoming the very thing that transformed you. You learned the life that transformed you. You focused on yourself in a way you hadn't before. Maybe you reconnected with your passions, strengthened your friendships, or finally gave attention to the goals you had put on hold. You became more grounded, more at peace, more in tune with who you really are. Slowly but surely, the version of you he once knew began to disappear, replaced by someone more confident, self-assured, and radiant. This wasn't about revenge or proving anything. It was about becoming whole again, for you, not for him. And now he sees it. Whether through mutual friends, social media, or in passing, he notices the change. He can sense that you're not the same person he walked away from. There's a different energy about you, one that no longer needs his validation. Suddenly, you're more attractive than ever, not because you're trying to impress him, but because you've grown into someone who values herself more than his presence. And then there's an influence you've got, and it's something that nobody values is going to attract the right people. And then two, you're not the same person he walked away from. There's an impression, that quiet strength, that glow, it hits him harder than anything else could. What he sees now is a woman who didn't wait for him to come back, a woman who found her light in the middle of the storm he left her in. And as much as he wants to reach for that light again, deep down, he knows it might be too late. Because the person you've become doesn't need the version of love he was once willing to offer. He needs the person you've evolved, and he's left staring at the distance between who you are now and who he was when he let you go. His desperation might seem like a sign that he finally understands your worth, but it's important to see it for what it truly is. Desperation doesn't always come from love, it often comes from fear. Fear of being alone, fear of losing control, fear of watching someone they once had become happier without them. These emotions can be intense, but they don't necessarily mean he's ready to show up differently. Just because someone wants you back doesn't mean they've grown into the partner you deserve. When someone feels like they're losing something valuable, they often react with urgency. They say all the right things, make big promises, and act as though they've suddenly had a revelation. But urgency isn't the same as transformation. Growth takes time, reflection, and consistent effort. So if he hasn't done the deep work to understand why he walked away or how he hurt you, then his return is built on shaky ground. Emotion without action, after all, is just noise. It's easy to get swept up in the emotion of someone wanting you again, especially when you once wanted them so badly. But real love isn't about who misses you when you're gone. It's about who is willing to show up and do the work when you're still there. You can't build something lasting with someone who only sees your value once it's at risk of disappearing. Wanting you back is not enough. Being ready to love you with maturity, respect, and consistency, that's what matters. So, before you take him back, ask yourself the hard questions. Has he really changed? Or is he just scared of losing access to you? Is he showing signs of true emotional growth? Or is he hoping that his regret will be enough to win you over? No, you have to be honest with who you were and with what he has to say. Why is he saying something that you wouldn't have heard before you triggered your anger, your bitterness, or is he just scared of losing access to you? Is he showing signs of true emotional growth? Or is he hoping that his emotions and feelings will win you? Will power his words to win you? Will his true emotional growth? Desperation might bring him to your doorstep, but devotion is what keeps someone by your side for the right reasons. You deserve the kind of love that doesn't have to lose you to realize your worth. Time and distance can sometimes bring clarity, but they don't always bring growth. Just because he spent time away from you doesn't mean he used that time to reflect on his actions, confront his flaws, or understand the role he played in the breakdown of the relationship. Many people confuse time apart with healing, but real growth requires intentional effort, not just the passing of days. Without doing the inner work, he's likely still carrying the same habits, insecurities, and emotional patterns that caused the relationship to fall apart in the first place. When someone comes back after walking away, it's tempting to assume that their return means something has changed. The truth is, people often miss comfort more than they miss accountability. He may miss the way you made him feel, the support you gave, or the stability you offered, but that doesn't mean he's become the kind of partner who knows how to give those things in return. Missing you is not the same as being ready for you. There's a big difference between wanting to come back and being ready to stay in a healthy, meaningful way. It's easy to fall into the trap of hope, believing that maybe the time apart helped him realize everything he did wrong. But unless he's taken responsibility, worked through his emotional immaturity, and learned how to truly show up for someone else, nothing has really changed. He's just returning with the same mindset wrapped in new words. The apology might be new, the promises might sound convincing, but if his actions don't reflect consistent growth, then it's just a recycled version of the past. You owe it to yourself to ask the tough questions. Has he grown in a way that's deep, consistent, and evident in his actions, not just his words? Has he done the emotional work to be a better communicator, a better listener, a more present and reliable partner? If the answer is no, then his return isn't a sign of healing. It's a repeat of an old cycle. And you deserve more than someone who wants you only when they fear they've lost you. You deserve someone who chooses you because they've grown enough to keep you. When someone walks away without putting up a real fight, it sends a clear message about how much effort they're willing to invest in the relationship. Love isn't just about the easy moments or the good times. It's about showing up when things get tough, standing firm when challenges arise, and fighting for the connection even when it feels hard. If he chose to leave without making that effort, it means he didn't value the relationship enough to fight for it. And that lack of willingness to fight can be a red flag for what might happen again in the future. The real love is about commitment, not convenience. It's about being present not only when things are comfortable, but also when they're messy or complicated. When someone truly cares, they don't run from conflict or difficulties. They face them head on because they know that preserving the relationship is worth the struggle. If he walked away without showing that kind of determination, it's worth questioning whether he ever saw the relationship as something worth fighting for, or if he was only there for the good times. When a person doesn't fight for you, it can leave a lasting feeling of abandonment and insecurity. You begin to wonder if you'll always have to be the one to hold things together, or if you'll be left alone whenever things get challenging. And that kind of uncertainty wears on your heart. It's important to remember that love should bring security, not doubt. If he walked away once without a fight, That pattern might repeat itself, and it's something you deserve to be cautious about. Fighting for love isn't about drama or proving something to others. It's about showing up authentically and valuing the relationship enough to work through the hard moments. If he wasn't willing to do that the first time, it's reasonable to question whether he'll be willing to do it now. You deserve someone who sees you as a priority, someone who stays even when it's difficult, and someone who proves that their love is strong enough to withstand the storms, not just enjoy the sunshine. When someone wants to come back into your life after walking away, it might feel tempting to rush into forgiveness or give them another chance out of loneliness or hope. But it's important to remember that this decision isn't about what he wants now. His feelings, his regrets, and his desires don't automatically mean you should open the door again. The power lies with you, and the choice to welcome him back has to be based on what you truly need and want for yourself, not on his emotions or pleas. You have the right to set boundaries that protect your heart and your well-being. And this means being honest with yourself about what you will and won't tolerate moving forward. It might mean deciding that certain behaviors or patterns are deal breakers. And that's okay. You don't owe anyone forgiveness or another chance if it comes at the cost of your own peace or happiness. Your future deserves to be built on respect, trust, and genuine care, never on desperation or half-hearted apologies. It's also about recognizing your own growth and honoring how far you've come. If you've spent time healing and learning what you truly deserve, you shouldn't let someone's sudden return erase that progress. You're no longer the person who blindly accepted whatever was given before. Now you have clarity about your worth, and that clarity should guide your decisions. Giving someone a second chance isn't about going back to old patterns. It's about choosing wisely and ensuring that if you do open your heart again, it's with someone who truly values you. Ultimately, deciding if he's worth a second chance means putting yourself first. It means listening to your intuition and trusting your judgment. You are the one who has to live with the consequences of this choice, so make sure it aligns with your self-respect and your vision for a healthy, fulfilling relationship. No one else can decide this for you, and no amount of his desperation should pressure you into anything that doesn't feel right deep down. Sometimes the strongest way to find closure isn't by chasing after someone who left, but by walking away with your head held high. When you choose to keep moving forward, you show that your happiness and peace don't depend on their presence. It's a powerful statement that your life doesn't revolve around their decisions or their timing. You take back your power by refusing to be pulled back into a cycle that didn't serve you before. Letting them want you while you keep walking means you don't give them the satisfaction of watching you fall apart or beg for their return. Instead, you silently show that you're capable of thriving without them. This doesn't mean you're cold or indifferent. It means you're confident in your worth and your path. Your absence speaks louder than any words, making them realize what they lost without you having to say a thing. You don't need revenge to prove anything. You don't need to get back at them or make them suffer for their choice. True power is found in your peace of mind, the calm and strength you hold when you stop trying to fix what's broken and start focusing on what heals you. When you walk away with grace, it shows that your value was never tied to their acceptance. Your peace becomes the loudest proof that you never needed them to begin with. Ultimately, closure comes from within. It's the moment you decide that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's actions or presence. You create your own ending by choosing to keep walking forward, leaving behind the past and all the hurt it held. In doing so, you reclaim control of your story, and that's where true freedom and healing begin.